Harris. Just one number, for example, 2020, 42% of young men identified as Democrats. Now that's down to 32%. Joining us now, former White House congressional spokesman Harrison Fields, rising sophomore at Swarthmore College, Ellerbe Mendez. Nice to see you both. Thank you. I'm sure, Harrison, you will understand. Ladies first. Ellerbe, we'll start with you. There's this concept, right, that politics is downstream of culture. And how much of this move by young women to be sort of fiercely democratic is cultural rather than just about political issues?
I would say it's a little bit of both, but if I had to guess, and speaking for myself, I think that a big reason that young women are mostly voting for Democrats is because of abortion and the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and just the general stance on abortion from the Republican Party. I do believe that that is a policy issue, and that is a big reason that women are voting for Democrats. However, there is definitely a cultural aspect. I know that a lot of women feel threatened by former President Trump's language surrounding women prior to his campaign. So some of it is social, while some of it is rooted in policy, which I think is the main reason.
So, Harrison, how much of this is a missed opportunity by the Trump campaign, in that there's young women who, it may not be President Trump's policies versus just the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and leaning into the cultural side of men will be men and we're going to beat our chests and everything else, versus being willing to say, yeah, and there's a lot of young women who we'd like to have here who don't necessarily buy into that?
Well, I'd say one thing. President Trump is running a multifaceted campaign, one that isn't just focused on a woman's reproductive right, but it's also focused on a woman's ability to purchase a home, a woman's ability to feel safe when she walks out of her front door into the streets of the inner city because of the immigration crisis, a woman who wants to go to the grocery store and not have to worry about inflation that's been over 20% under the Biden-Harris administration. Yeah. So the Democrats are good at focusing in on one issue, but President Trump and Republicans are focusing on a lot of issues, not just the reproductive ones, that are actually impacting women day in and day out. So
fair enough, Harrison. We can all agree that that did not necessarily work out so well in 2022. That was the argument I kept hearing from Republicans. Democrats zeroed in on Roe v. Wade, and they turned out young women in particular in droves, and it worked for them. So, Ellerbe, I think about this maybe in a different sense. And you're Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, where you go to school. But the Democratic Party is doing everything it can to reach out and to have a subset of issues for every single group on the diversity triangle. And then it looks at young white men and says, by the way, it's your fault that all these people aren't doing well. And the only way we're interested in you is if you're there to atone and listen and recognize your privilege. How do Democrats reverse the trend that we're obviously seeing with young white men?
Honestly, I think that that's a really fair point. I think that the target towards diversity can feel threatening to especially white men. But what I have found is that a lot of white men on Swarthmore campus are still Democrats. And I know that that is the minority, as we're talking about, with young men being Democrats. However, I think that for me at least, the more I have learned about the Democratic platform and a lot of the things it stands for, the more I feel as though other people are able to see that putting aside your personal experiences and getting defensive is important for the greater whole and in the name of what an amazing, diverse country the United States is, and lifting up the minority groups.
No, look, Ellerbe, you're in the swing state of swing states, right? I mean, Pennsylvania is where this is at. You guys are both slightly different ages. That said, of your friend groups, how many would be willing, and Harrison, we'll start with you, would be willing to marry someone not of the same political persuasion?
I would say 60-40. I think you have a lot of people that can't simply do that. My wife happens to be conservative. That wasn't the first thing that we talked about before we started dating. But we do live in a very polarized world where you don't see a lot of people from opposite political parties dating, let alone marrying.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.